So I think just to kick off, I would love to hear from a talent perspective, and especially from a tech talent perspective, tell me the state of the land. This is a problem that the overlay of the land. This is a problem that, hiring, salaries, competition from mainland companies trying to take our people. Like, what's the general state? Is stuff as bad as everyone says it is?
Can I start? Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing this for 15 years in this space, so network monitoring, and probably you folks don't know, but we have almost 20 people in network monitoring in Hawaii that are global experts. So not only are we are the leaders. We created companies that are the leaders in this space at the world stage, and it's crazy for me to say that as I'm one of them. And like I said, I went to high school, I went to UH, I just got the opportunities to grow my career in this space from Hawaii. And so when we talk about talent, I know for a fact that we can do it. We can do it by learning here, we can do it from here, and I know that talent can be born here. And it just takes time. It takes time and consistent investment and guidance. And the thing about talent that I view is it's kind of been a theme throughout these sessions, is that we can grow it. So when I hire and I look for people that are ready to join the bus. So like I have this idea in my head that my company or my team is driving a bus, and if you are willing to get on my crazy bus, I can help drive us to that place. And so that's kind of how I view talent. And I think the thing about Hawaii is there's a lot of people that are willing to get on that bus or canoe and head in that same direction. And I think talent in terms of coding is something that I don't value as much as teamwork and collaboration.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would add, for us, it's really about the competencies, and I love that you're an athlete because we use that term a lot. We look to hire athletes. The thing about tech is it's not what you know, it's how you learn, right? As you probably know from your career, my career. It's so ever-changing, it's so fluid. I think Hawaii's full of natural athletes, a really good growth mindset, super curious, willing to work together as one, row together as one. I mean, all those traits of that oneness and coming together are so innate in everyone here in Hawaii, whether born here or come here. And what I love about our journey at Surfco is we've discovered so many athletes coming through UH, through our internship program, and it's about that nurturing too, which is a big part of it. So we really got to nurture the skill sets, nurture the mindset, know that the technology is ever evolving. And I think that's just a unique thing that I've found with the skill sets that we've hired here in Hawaii that I think makes it definitely a place where we can grow the talent exceptionally well.
Zach, can you give us the lay of the land from your perspective, seeing now hundreds and hundreds of candidates and dozens, if not hundreds of companies?
So I like to start off by saying Hawaii is an advantage. It's not an exception. So that means that being in Hawaii, right, we are the most isolated landmass in the world, and sometimes people write us off. A lot of times people write us off, right? So people like Aaron, who are leading the way to inspire a large Series C company hiring a pod of software engineers out here. At a certain time, I think you had 10, right, on your team, tech talent here in Hawaii. Competitors at a high level, right? You think about Max Holloway making it to the top in UFC. We can do the same in tech, and we can do the same in defense technology in the startup scene. Shout out to Reef AI, who's kind of leading the way now, early stage startup. Brent Grimes, 2 days ago, he gave a keynote talking about how he wants to intentionally hire here in Hawaii. 40 to 50% of his tech team will always be here in Hawaii. Until they exit, maybe, right? they don't really make the decision anymore. So for me, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that right now. There's a lot, whether it's time zone, whether it's taxes, whether it's people not being just they don't have the organizational appetite to actually hire someone in Hawaii because no one's done it before. So it starts with advocacy.
And I see you itching. I want to get in a little bit deeper here to some of the programs. I feel like you folks have been hiring here for a really long time, but before going into kind of what is being done, I want to just really double click into some of these problem sets that normally come up. And we hear it, and we talk about it all the time, whether it be pay, whether it be time zones, whether it be I've heard everything at this point, every excuse or every problem that could be made up. Could each of you maybe take a couple minutes and go into, from your perspective, maybe P1, P2, P3, what are the biggest challenges that you see with being able to either retain talent here or bring talent in versus offers or jobs on the mainland? And Zach, maybe if you get us kicked off and we'll work down the line.
Yep. So number one's pay scale. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. When people are trying to move home, Hawaii's number one in cost of living and cost of doing business, and we're 48 in terms of pay scale, right? So that's a huge delta, and that's something that for us, we want to solve, right? With every person we help hire, when you have people like Aaron that are hiring people at tier 1 salaries at market rates, competitive with San Francisco, competitive with New York City, right? People taking 80K, 100K leaps in their salary changes their lives, and it's not something that we've always done that. We've always paid this little. Right now, people are starting to pay a little bit more, and we're starting to see that traction, but it does take a village, right? We need more Kentiks, we need more Aarons to lead the charge. And talking about it, we're a whole culture of talk story, right? So I think that's at the heart of what we want to do, and we just want to help to get it out there, let people know it can be done. And I'll let Aaron go because it kind of feeds right into what he's doing.
I want to go last.
You want to go last? Okay, yeah.
And I think that definitely the pay is a challenge. I'm on the board of HEC. I was just talking to our HR team, and they do an annual comp survey, which we should all look at if you haven't already. And they do a lot on the tech side too. And so we've been trying over the years to build job families that are consistent with those same job families in the mainland. And there is definitely a pay gap. We see it. So how do you make up for that? We just can't overpay or get people equal. So we find, can we make the work interesting, right? Can we build a culture that, we look at our core values of respect, service, teamwork, and innovation. It's all there. If we can live and embody those, it makes it a really interesting environment to bring people back. And then a company like ourselves too, it's the other things around it. It's the community aspect of it. Like I think of, there's Jen, who came back from Silicon Valley. She oversees our UX team, and it's just great to see her back here home. But also, she's also in the community. She's co-founding UX Hawaii and so building a competency around product design and user experience, which didn't really exist, and still very nascent. But that opportunity to kind of be part of something bigger, and kind of offset some of the direct pay compensation, because that compensation is paid back, and I think it speaks to those values in Hawaii too. It's much more than the paycheck, right? It's that community, it's that oneness, it's that ability to grow and build something together. So we kind of look at those aspects, and it's a big part of our company as well, is to focus on that outward side of being a team member at Servco. We have a whole part of our company called Team Serve, which is about serving the community. Yeah. It was a big pull for me. Coming here wasn't really about pay by any means. It was about the ability to be part of something bigger. Yeah. And I think that speaks volumes to what you mentioned and both what you mentioned. So that's a big way we overcome it. I mean, nonetheless, though, we still got to be competitive and figure out other ways to incentivize. We're always looking at it. We're always trying to. I mean, annual may not be enough. That's when we look at the benchmark surveys. And I think the other aspect is we start with the talent pretty green. And we've been doing internships at the high school level, even. Yeah. At the college level, and from there, I'm really happy if after 3 years they're at a point where they're super marketable, and hopefully they find a more competitive salary here in Hawaii. But nonetheless, it's just great that we've been able to help them nurture their career in a way, and if they choose to go elsewhere, let those athletes go, charge it somewhere else.
Interesting, yeah. And Aaron, I want to hear your take as well, and then I'll kind of do a summary of the three. Yeah,
I wanted to go last because I called my buddy that works in big tech, and I was explaining this panel. Yeah. And I was trying to help figure out what do I have to list as problems. And I really don't have a lot of problems. And maybe that's why I'm here, to represent a company that has kind of graduated into a place where they can hire anywhere they want. So my company does a market research on salaries. We pay everybody above market no matter where they live. And so I get paid as much as I would get paid if I was in New York City. Nobody really leaves our company because of pay. We pay top dollar. We pay as much as big tech in some senses. And so we don't have that pay problem. And our company hires experts. We look for experts where they live. And that's what I represent. And I think the big problem that I have is, and actually time zone, we mentioned time zone. For a SaaS company, Hawaii time zone is great. So I don't know who's been in a SaaS company. Yeah. Well, the thing is, we're very valuable in Hawaii time zone because New York is up, West Coast is up, and Hawaii can always help at the end. And so I run the platform team of our company, and it's advantageous for us to have more people in the Hawaii time zone. It bridges Asia as well. And so my boss says, if we can hire more in Hawaii, that would be great, especially because I'm here, obviously. And so of the challenges that we kind of discussed earlier, I don't have those challenges. The biggest challenge that I have is where Zach comes in, is finding people that are motivated, crazy enough, and knowledgeable enough to join my elite team, right?
And let's be honest, people in Silicon Valley are having beers at 5 their time. People in Hawaii are still working, 2, 3 o'clock, right? You pass on the baton to people here. So it can be done. Aaron is a great example of that.
A couple things to just pull out here. So one is, I think, Pete, what you had mentioned with the compelling vision, right? Like being part of something bigger. I think part of the reason why I was so excited to have you and Servco on the panel was, I'm a Servco customer, right? Like, come on, pretty much half the island has gotten there, either Toyota or Chevy from Servco. Incredible company, incredible brand, incredible legacy here. And being able to work on something that's directly applicable to the day-to-day within Hawaii. And I think actually you folks have done incredibly well on the digital experience side. I know that's your area. I'm not even just trying to play you up. It's like I get my, every 6 months, I know where I'm at with my maintenance and everything. And you've built something that I would expect, that quality and caliber level of the Bay Area, but here in Hawaii, and you're having people that are building stuff that are touching that. So you are working on something, I think, compelling that I know I'm gonna have direct impact on my home community. The pay thing is interesting because I feel like since I've moved back home, like it definitely has began to shrink in, and part of that is I've been founding the companies and so forth. And Zach, one thing that you've brought up as well in the past is this issue of like remote work pay and so forth. And so, Aaron, I know you folks are a little bit more pure remote, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we're 100%
pure
remote.
Yeah. But Zach, have you seen any difference on the specific issue of pay on remote versus companies that are based actually here physically?
So we have a lot of data points with a lot of our enterprise companies that we work with here, right? The banks, we have a lot of the utilities and energy companies that we work with in finding talent. And so we know what the data points are. And we also use a cool software. A Hawaii boy actually helped to build it at Punahou, our classmate Paul Okuda at Pave Compensation. So we use that to make data-driven decisions, and we're able to map entire markets and get real-time salary insights. So that's something that when you look at Hawaii, we also want to benchmark it to the US, right? And to be competitive, right? And I hear the word internal equity a lot. And I feel like that word, or internal equity, that phrase, is used to prevent people from taking that step up in compensation. It's how we've always done it this way. It's going to upset our internal equity. We're paying these people this much right now, so this person who's coming back home, they're going to stay in San Francisco and raise their family. There's a small window of time where you graduate from college, you're building your career in your 20s, in your 30s, you're starting to settle down in your 40s ideally, and then pretty soon you realize, I'm not going to move back ever, right? You're going to be 50, you're going to be 60, you're going to stay on the mainland, and we want those people to come back. So sacrificing a little base salary right now for a huge return later, I think to me is a real good deal and a great investment for Hawaii.
Agreed. Now, what else is out there? We talked about time. The time zone and the platform engineering is one of the more hilarious things I've heard this week because it's so spot on. You get all the problems at the end of the day, right?
We're very, very valuable here. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I mean,
enabling the New York and San Francisco people to actually go to happy hour while you pick up the Jira ticket. Now, so we talked a little bit about ensuring that there's compelling vision, pay, time zone. Anything else top of mind before we kind of move on to what you folks are actually doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think for me in recruiting and retaining people in my companies that I work for in my entire career, it's really about being able to be a storyteller. and connecting people, right? So that's something that I'm really good at. I could tell you lots of stories and tell you about how I'm passionate about what I'm working on. And I think that's really important to represent your brand and your companies and then make those connections. And so I keep tabs on a lot of people and bring people in. And that's how I recruit and retain. And if you're not able to do that, then somebody like Zach can help do that for you. Because I hear Zach talking about my company or me, and he represents me pretty well to the people that he's branched out to. And so I think that's a good partnership there. Yeah, he and I got to know each other really well, and I think having a partner like that and having that connection really makes a real big difference.
Now, going into the specifics of like the day-to-day strategy, or I would say one strategies, and then we can dial in a little bit more to the day-to-day tactics of what you folks are doing to build. Let's start with you, Pete, and talk about building that kind of compelling brand, compelling company to work for. Shanoa mentioned this, I think, and this is more in startup context on Tuesday. Maybe it was Monday night. It was one of the days. It's been a long week, and that if you have a compelling of enough vision, a compelling enough company, the people are gonna come and follow. Servco, obviously, known brand name, but you are spending a lot of time from the ground up, from the high school level internship, building out these kind of programs. So you have that. Can you maybe speak a little bit on that, and then maybe bridge a little bit into how you're actually running some of the global operations in Australia and other places from here?
Yeah, I think in some cases, Servco might be like one of the world's oldest startup from a mindset. And our founder, Peter Fukunaga, he has this famous quote that we live by is you either grow or you die. There's no in between. And by growth is continually to adapt, right? And change and innovate. And how do you do that in a way that's based on those values of respect and service and teamwork, within the community and beyond. And I mean, Servco's been in almost every business across Hawaii that you can imagine. And it's just a testament to that experimentation philosophy, which is a big aspect of how the company got into Australia in the early 2000s, which is we're now the biggest Toyota retailer across the country. It's outsized Hawaii. And I think what's fascinating too is just that continued innovation is really what brought me to Servco and brought the focus. And actually, and I should say before, it's a big investment for any company to invest in these skills, which are relatively new here. How do they actually tie into the business and generate return on that investment? I look at it like always in that flywheel effect. It's like, which also the inverse is the doom of death, or whatever it's called, the doom loop. So you're on this kind of continuous cycle. So how do we make ourselves valuable in the aspects of the business? It's great to hear that you said the digital experience is good, but I look at the digital experience as really, our goal is to make everyone in the company a technologist. Everyone to feel that they're empowered and democratized to look at data, use data to analyze their jobs, whether it sits in my team or sits in the retail operations. And the same goes in the front line. And those are where the ideas really resonate for us, because they're closest to the consumer. And same goes in Australia. So in Australia, it's really interesting because we're able to find synergy. We're trying to solve similar problems. And we're trying to use this, it's not a mathematical equation, but 1 + 1 = 3. If we have a data engineer here, why can't we leverage them there? If we have a product owner there, why can't we leverage them here, a developer there, here? And the time zones really help too. Our TIS is kind of truly follows on the sun because we support both Australia and they support us here. Same with cybersecurity. It works great. And I think Hawaii is really remarkable in that regard, in that we have full coverage. Whether we expand that to other aspects of where we may grow in the future remains to be seen. But a lot of that kind of plays into just the mindset of Servco too, is how do we get value of the assets we have in new and innovative ways? And the biggest asset is our people, especially when we think of the value that we can bring with these new skills into the business.
Can I ask you another follow-up question? Sorry, I'm gonna commandeer Pete for a second. How did they get you over? What was the compelling? Like, you went through this, right? We got a globally someone that you could have gone anywhere in the world. What made you come here? How did they pull you in?
It was the people. It was what Hawaii represented, what I think you guys so eloquently described, and that ability to give back. I think, like Guy said, you don't have a balanced life throughout your career. You go through a third. It's like giving back, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a big component for me, and being able to help source this talent, develop it locally, And getting a chance to work with people like Alan Ito and workforce development from UH, and just the access to so many of those great athletes here. That really, and I have a family too, so
Yep.
twin daughters, so to raise them here in such a great community was a big draw. So, and it wasn't money. I took a pay cut to come here. It wasn't the rationale for me.
Gotcha.
It was everything else I just described.
Gotcha. And Aaron, talk about this. So you obviously, you talked a little bit about the comp scale. You talked a little bit about ruthlessly prioritizing, just finding the best people in the world. Was that something that you came up with? Was that part of Kentech prior?
Yeah, so that was part of Kentech's business model, is just to hire the best wherever they are. And I think really the story isn't about Kentech, even though I work there and that's the name that you see on the screen. The story that I want you to take away from this talk and my talk is that we have engineers here that are the world leaders for the companies that I work for. And that is remarkable in my head. And every time I tell this story in front of people, it blows my mind that I'm one of them, right? And it's this series of events that has taken me there. And sometimes I feel a little worried about sharing that story, because how repeatable is that, right? Like, can I just tell a young engineer that, hey, I'm this, here's a formula, you can be that too? And it's not that, right? I share my story because I hopefully represent what's possible if you work hard, right? And that's why I do that. And I do a lot of STEM events. I mentor a lot of students. I mentor a lot of professionals in hopes that they can figure out a way to replicate the success that I've had and to give back to them. And so, Kentech was a great place for me to work because they valued my expertise, right? And that's why they pay me they pay me well wherever I live. And they take care of me because I'm an expert in my field. And so I look for those places because I am, and I think I'm so very fortunate to be on that path of companies that have created that. And so, yeah, it's really about that. That's possible. Right? And that's what I want to share with people, is that, people like me, that I was going to be an agriculture major. I learned computer science in college. 4 years later, I worked at NASA, and now I'm the director of platform engineering at one of the biggest companies in the world. That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I think having the youth or the younger generation, whatever age range.
I'm young too.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell myself that as well. But having them believe is the first step, right? Yeah. And that was part of the genesis of just doing this, right? Because versus our people going to the Bay Area or New York to go to a conference or whatever we would want to call this, an aggregation of events, having them see that we have people on the ground, boots on the ground here doing it is so important. Zach, from your...
Can I just say one more thing? Yeah. So the question of talent, right? I think that's a big question. And it upsets me a lot of times when I hear the idea that there's not talent. It's upsetting because, there's no way in my head that I think I'm talented as a software engineer. There's no way that you would look at me on paper and think that I'm special. I've only had the success because somebody else created the space for me to have that success. And so it's not the youth's fault, it's not the lack of talent, because they're there. There's plenty of kids that go to high school, right? It's the people that create the space for that, I feel like I'm one of them, right? And so it bothers me when I hear there's no talent, because I'm trying, and I'm look for more people like Peter and Zach to help me create that space to bring more people on that journey. And so the lack of talent just really bugs me, and I want to make a difference in that. And part of how I do that is sharing about our stories and having companies create that space for others to follow. And that's really what we should be trying to do, is create more space for people to follow. So.
That's a great point. there's so many people. I wish I could hire everyone that's come through the Leaf Starter program or our internship program, because they are phenomenal, and inspiring every year. I mean, every summer we do a hackathon here, and all the interns spend 2 days, really from start to finish, in developing a prototype. And they're not all technologists. They're across all aspects of our company. Some will work in the vehicle processing center, some are in tax, some are in marketing, some are in finance operations, and it's just phenomenal to see how they pick up these concepts so quick and can really come and present in front of executives and something really compelling. I mean, but we just can't hire everyone here at SurfCo. I wish, but I love that we're connecting, because I would love to divert them somewhere else, and be an advocate for them here in Hawaii.
Zach, can you talk a little bit more about, you've obviously seen this across a pretty large slice of companies. It's always hard to give, I think, very set advice when you're talking about a general market, right? Because each company is unique and so forth. But if you had to give just some of the high-level things that you're seeing working, pay sounds like one of them. What else, from your perspective, like strategy-wise, and maybe going down into the tactics?
Yeah. So first of all, these guys talked a lot about supply and demand. Peter talked about supply and demand. There is always so much demand for talent, but there's not enough supply, not just here on the island, but on the West Coast, on the East Coast. So how can all of us look at ourselves as recruiters, right? Because AEP Hawaii, we're a recruiting consulting company, right? But each and every one of us in this room knows someone that either had to move from Hawaii because of compensation or lack of opportunity, or someone who's not able to move home, right? They can't move their family home, they want to be home, they can't find the right opportunity here, whether it's remote or whether it's a company here, right? And they don't want to take a 50% haircut and move back home. So I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to advocate for each other. If there's one person, like one Aaron, that's at a company working from Hawaii, that's a use case in and of itself, right? So I think that I just wanted to cap that off with that. The supply and demand is, to me, something that's one of the bigger issues. But how do we address that? So, I talked to one executive. He got to the very end of an interview process, and he said, Zach, this is really frustrating, because I even knew the person who referred me. And at the end of the road, they said, oh, you're in Hawaii. Never mind. And that pissed me off, to be honest. And for me, it's like I've been a grappler all my life, so I'm trying to grapple with this idea. How are we gonna do this? How are we gonna finish? What we need to do to make people, have the opportunity to come back to Hawaii. And I think for us, it's one tactic that has really worked for me, and I think can breed a lot of entrepreneurship, is presenting yourself as a contractor or a 1099 contractor. So that's a strategic way, other than being a W-2, that you can market yourself for these opportunities, especially if you're a specialist. You've been doing it 5 years, you've been doing it 10 years, right? And my CPA friends also tell me that there's a lot of tax advantages with excise tax that's involved in billing yourself out as a 1099 contractor. So you think about it, you pick up one client, then you pick up another, then you're a micro business, and then you're living in Hawaii, and maybe you hire someone. You're giving back to the economy right away. So that's one way that we've talked to a lot of folks that are consultants and contractors that are specialized within technology and finance. That's one way that we want to highlight, how it's been done. And it's kind of a new thing, right? A lot of people are W-2 contractors. They have benefits through a payrolling agency or whatnot. But that's something that we've been talking to a lot of folks about.
And is that more for the remote, like the people that are working for companies on the mainland remotely, or are you even seeing that in Hawaii companies?
You could be Hawaii to Hawaii. It could be Hawaii to mainland. But the tax break is when you're Hawaii to mainland, which is great, right? So I think when you look at these remote opportunities, you have to sift through what's actually available for Hawaii, because I posted about it on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people that were talking about it. I had that experience, and I applied to this job. They said no, because I'm in Hawaii. So I think what happens is you realize someone can do work from Hawaii, and then that stigma goes away. But there has to be a catalyst for change, right? And I think it starts with talking about it. You don't want to have to hide Hawaii on your LinkedIn, right? You want to be proud of it. And that's something that once I moved back home, or once I started spending more time and moving back and forth, I wanted to have that on my LinkedIn to show that it can be done, right? And I think there's a lot of people that just have the United States. I want people to rep the 808, right? And I think that's super important.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. I think a tactic, though, that I think works really well is having somebody like Zach as a partner. So I think what he's really good at, and I know a lot of people in this industry, and he works with a lot of them. I think what having somebody like Zach on your team to help, source
Yeah.
people, is that he understands what I'm good at, and he understands what kind of person that I would work best with, and I can see and I hear, like he knows this other company, and he knows what kind of people works with best there.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to go do 100 interviews. I would rather have somebody that Zach thinks that would work best with me, And so I think that's a tactic that makes sense, like bring people that I could have a high success rate with, and my company is going to pay, right? Because it's more important for us to get that hire. It's not my money. I'm just going to pay, we're going to pay Zach the money that he needs, and that's going to make our lives easier. So I think.
No. So you talked a little bit about utilizing AEP, and Pete, you folks obviously are very tied in with LeapStart. You have the broader internship program. Really quickly, how many people right now, if you can share, are in Servco overall and then Servco Digital?
Yes, in Servco overall, including Australia, we're 2,300. I think. Oh, actually, we just did our Microsoft license renewals. We're apparently 2,600. 2,600 between Servco.
Microsoft,
Australia.
you should sponsor
Yeah.
HCW next
No
year.
true
You're
ups,
getting
please,
free
no true
shout
ups.
out. Yeah, no true.
Yes, give us. Anyway, but yeah,
We'll edit that out.
yeah. So in digital, so I think we're small like development I can break it down from devs. We're probably 6. Data is probably 3. We have a team of product owners. Who also do content and such, and then our TIS. So we're in probably the total team here in Hawaii that supports Social Australia is probably in the mid-40s, I'd say, across the board. Yeah.
And what was that? What was that on this specific realm of partnering, for example, with some of these workforce development programs? Like, if you're because I mean, again, it's a little bit different. You're a local company here. How did you folks go about doing that? Like, if you had to give advice out for someone wanting to follow in your footsteps, and I want to give this back to you after, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to start from the top. I mean, I think that was a big compelling reason I came, is that commitment, and the leadership in Servco, going back to that continuous innovation, is looking at new ways. Like the digital space had been something on the radar for so many years, and investing in technology to move the business forward. So having that leadership that's still very much bought into it, even though we're still working through how to really show the value of it across all aspects of the business, is super critical. And then and that's got to permeate throughout the organization too. So going back to that flywheel effect, to make it really work is how do you find those quick wins, right? Where and it doesn't have to be from the digital team or the technologist himself, but if you can empower someone, like a big thing we're looking at now is Power Apps, and moving all of our data to BigQuery. But then we're trying to retool people who maybe were Excel jockeys, but now pull that data from BigQuery, and you can do so much more. Still pull into Excel if you want. And then the same with Power Apps, right? These citizen developers, but they could have been clamoring over data to kind of replenish parts, and now we can give them hopefully access to tools to do that in a much more more tech savvy way within the organization. Those kind of build momentum, around the use of continued investment in these skill sets, and to do the more complicated or complex initiatives as well. So that's kind of been a big part of it, that we've been focusing on over the last years. And then I think, showing that talent, we're kind of now starting to move some of that tech talent throughout the organization as opposed to centralized, and having that close to the operations, they're really seeing the value of those skill sets in action, like some of the leap starters we brought on. And so that continues to just pay.
Yeah.
For a big organization like ours, you kind of need that, right? You need pockets of those advocates to kind of speak on behalf of the investment, as opposed to, because everyone's going to say, I want it bigger, I want it faster, cheaper, and better. So why don't you go to Argentina or something?
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
we'll open for Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
So is that just that they go call Alan? Alan, hey Alan. For anyone who doesn't know Alan, Alan leads IT workforce development. You may.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like an internship program at the university, a cross between an internship and a co-op. But what Pete was, for one, Servco is a very innovative company, very cool company, if anyone doesn't know that. But what's interesting is Pete went over the numbers of his digital team. I can tell you, for LeapStart, I'm getting calls from all over the organization. It's not, I mean, Pete is like the initial sponsor, and we established a relationship with Pete, but people from all over the company are calling to get a Leap Start person who's primarily a tech person to work in their area. So what he said earlier about they're trying to get everyone to be digitally smart, you know, that's true, and I think that's really exciting.
Great work, Alan.
And
Thanks, Al.
I think like part of it is just, especially if you're some of these bigger companies, like I think the smaller you are, obviously it's the harder, right? Because you're juggling more, you have less resource. But if you're a big company, you better start thinking about these type of things like now and have that good partner to help fill that talent pipeline. So call Alanito, I think is the... this is like free plugs right here.
But it speaks to the point you made. It's a community and a network.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, realize getting here, we've got to make benefit with the. We joined here when it was still, you know, still looks like it's under construction. There's a story behind that. I think we initially ran out of money. That's why, but it works. It works. But we banked an office here because we wanted to be part of the community that was tech and innovative, which HTTC, and True, and you know, UH, the innovation team which spoke yesterday, like all of that really works together. That, you know, rowing together for those same goals. And I think if you're a small company and you maybe don't have the access to resources, you have the access to that community. I would say just reach out to Alan's right here, you know, reach out. But that has made the biggest difference, I think, is just because now it feels like we really are, you know, kind of this in unison as a community and sourcing that talent locally, which has been really exciting.
Now, and I promise we'll go on to questions. We'll leave time at the end. We are going to have a hard stop at 6, but I think we have around 20 minutes left. Would love to have you folks just share a little bit, you know, a story or two about bringing someone back from the mainland back home. And I'll share my own. I don't know if he's in, I didn't bring him back, but in here today, there's a guy named Kevin Mackay. He's the CEO of a company called Tohonu. And a lot of you folks know him, I think. And what gets me most excited about, you know, the future here is we have this generation that went to the mainland, right? Whether it be Silicon Valley, we have Sonia Romero, Executive Director of Thrive Hawaii. Sonia, where you at? Maybe she, who came back, right? And they're coming back, and now they're devoting their time to working in the ecosystem and building out here. That gets me really excited because I think we have you're a perfect example of this as well. Would love to hear if there's a story from your, you know, each of your folks' careers of kama'aina that are coming back home, and maybe you can share a little bit about what that story looked like without, you know, breaking any HIPAA violations. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was actually living in Seattle with Kev for a while, so we'd always hang out, and he always said he wanted to move home, and super excited to see that. I think he was at Bird before Hohonu, and he's moving back home, I think, in a couple of months, so we'll be neighbors pretty much on the east side. But I want to give a shout out to one of our top recruiters, Angela. She worked on a search with a large Hawaiian nonprofit, and they really just scraped the whole market. They mapped the whole market. You know, it was multiple recruiting firms, multiple recruiting sources. And I think it was about 6 months, maybe longer, where the position was open. And she found a kama'aina who had all the bells and whistles, everything that they needed. And through proactive talent mapping on the mainland, not just in Hawaii. In every search we do, by the way, we look on the mainland and we look in Hawaii. We look for people who have Hawaii roots, mainly on the mainland, so we can bring them back home. And this gentleman was at a company for 15 years. He had no idea that he would have the opportunity to move back home. And Angela slid into his DMs on LinkedIn, and the rest is history. I think a couple months later, he was back home. And the organization that we worked with, too, helped him with a relocation bonus. They helped put him up in, how long was it? About 2-3 months? Yeah, 2 months. Gave him housing for 2 months while his family transitioned back home. So that's a great example of, you know, a high-level director of IT coming back home to Hawaii. And and that's something that, you know, I think it's great to highlight. Congrats, Angela, on that. We love to see it, and we need more of it.
Aaron, any stories of you bringing people back, or is it already?
I brought a number of people back, but I wanted to share about something else.
Okay, go. Like I said, Kanakavila style.
So a lot of my career, I've been mentoring a lot of folks and professionals and students, and I do a lot of STEM education, and I go to high schools and elementary schools around the islands. I flew to Maui and Kauai and talked to many schools over the last 12 years. And I went to one school in particular, and this is a great story. I gave a talk at Pro City High School. And at that age, the kids look like they don't listen. They don't nod their heads like you guys are doing right now. They're just like staring into the blackboard or whatever. Give my spiel. At the end of the talk, at high school level, I usually give my business card. And I tell the kids, only take my business card if you're going to contact me later. Nobody ever contacts me, right? But they always take my business card. 2 years after I gave that talk, somebody contacted me. He was a Pro City High School student. He said, hey, I've been holding your business card in my wallet for the last 2 years as I started to learn computer science because of your talk. And I wanted to learn enough about computer science so that I can ask you an actual question. So he met with me after. I've been mentoring him since. He started off at T-Mobile. He went into Y Combinator, graduated from Y Combinator, is a CEO of a company that is backed by major VCs. He's out in Seattle, and he's doing it. His name is Devin, and I love that guy. And I talk to him all the time. I give him advice. He's much more successful than I am at this point. But that's what I'm talking about when you're creating a space for people to follow. And those stories are so much more impactful to me than the people that I bring back from my own company, because I'm trying to do it for everybody else's kids, right? I'm trying to do it for the community. And honestly, I think that I would like to see more of those kinds of things and activities, and telling you that is possible because these students are looking for somebody to talk to them, to inspire them, to make them believe that they can do it too. Like, some kid from Aya that has made it this far, they can do it no matter where they came from. And to me, that's the things that I really strive to do.
No, that's an awesome story. And that's one of the important kind of noting caveat I want to make is I think we do focus a lot on, bringing people back home. And there are times when we want people to, I think the main goal is have people have success and bless, Hawaii back. A lot of the time that's going to be coming back home. I needed 10 years to get my ass kicked on the mainland. I get in shape, right? Like,
wait, these kids are examples for the next
100%,
right? And so that's how you build talent, is to have people believe that they can do it too. And when I visit these schools, I ask them, who wants to be a software engineer? Who wants to be in tech? They don't even know what that means, right? But then I ask them, have you done an hour of code? They all raise their hand. Yeah. They don't associate learning computer science and what they're doing as an actual job, because they don't see it out there. And so when I visit those schools, that's what they see. Hey, I'm a software engineer. I do technology. Hey, that guy looks just like me. Maybe I can be that too, right? And no matter where they go, the more people they see, if they came to this place, right, they'll see like, oh, there's a whole Honolulu Tech Week thing. That's what I could be. And that's why I'm excited about this event. I'm excited about all of the sessions, because people are gonna see it, these kids are gonna see it, and that's who we're gonna have as talent, right?
And I think two shameless plugs for events during this week. One, there's obviously a lot going on at UH Manoa. There was something with the esports gaming. We also had a really, really cool event at La Pietra yesterday called Wireless Wahine Women in Aviation, Hardware for Flight Women in Aviation, where they had a bunch of NASA astronauts do this. And then we have the community hackathon on Saturday. You should be a demo day judge. If any of you are interested, it'll actually be here on Saturday. And I'm in agreement with you, and I thank you for that. I know that's Zach's heart, that's my heart. I know, Pete, you as well. Is like, how do we just lift this entire thing up? No, I'll give it to you for maybe final pass. I want to do one question after, but any kind of interesting, really awesome stories from your purview? We talked about you coming back, right? Yeah. Or you moving here, excuse me.
Well, I think, to expand upon, let's keep the talent from leaving in the first place, right? So we've been very much focused on building from as early as we could, from whether it's students at McKinley who have been software developers, a couple from Punahou this past summer and they were all killing it. Let's hope they stay, and how do we continue to stay? And it's up for us to stay in touch with them through their college careers and give them that opportunity to grow and see that, just like I said, those careers are here from the get-go. And they can be very rewarding, and there's cool things to work on. And thank you, Alan, for saying we're a cool company. I appreciate it, and we are. But for bringing people back too, so I mentioned Jen up there. She's one of our great stories. Works a part of Brian's team in the product, and yeah, she had a great career in the Bay Area, and we found her, and she came back and has built a design team, within Surfco. A couple of them came through internships too, so they never left, which is great. And so they're building their careers here now, and like I said, she's building outward in the community already. And she's on. I think you're speaking tomorrow.
Yep.
So, and she's,
Jenna is awesome, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know her.
So she's paying it forward, giving it back, and growing a team and delivering great things as a result of it. Really important skills that we need to develop and invest in. And then another short one is, it was like a boomerang. So an intern who, we offered her a job upon graduation, but she wanted to work in Oregon where she went to school. But she had roots here, and after a year or so, she's like, I think I want to come back. And so actually, she came back to Revacom, and then we just kept in touch, and then eventually she's like, I think I want to come back to Surfco. And so we figured out a position, and she's one of our top developers at Surfco. Taylor.
So to wrap, before we go into questions, I think we'll take 3 questions at the end before Nam gives me the boot, and we're going to open this up again for beta brews right after. We're going to put some tables in here, have some free pizza. And this is not on the agenda. I'm throwing this out. One piece of advice for other executives or companies hiring, and again, I think we all have different perspectives. And one piece of advice for talent that is here that may be considering going away or potentially coming back home. What would those 2 be? From each of your POVs, again, I expect this to be different across the board. We'll go down the road. You're first. Sorry.
So one reason.
One piece of advice for executives or companies here to essentially maximize their retainment or recruiting a new talent, and then one for the talent themselves, either considering coming back home or that are here and are worried about having to leave.
Yeah, I think for the executives, and we talk about it at length, it's the intangibles. I mean, there's tangible about the ROI investing in these skills, but there's the intangible of that flywheel effect, like Alan illustrated. I think for us in particular, it's like to see these skills in action and what it does to your workforce. It's really compelling. It's depending on where you're benchmarking your goals as a CEO or organization. I mean, the productivity, the engagement, the sense of innovation, creativity, the curiosity, all those things, that sense of mindset of growth. Who wouldn't want that within the fabric of your company, right? You can only do great things and work through challenges. And then, for those thinking of going, it's like, look at what we've got going on here. There is a huge. I've met so many new community members here. I've only been here a little less than 6 years, and just first time we met, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, how do we connect this, tissue more easily together? That fabric is so awesome within Hawaii, and I think it's just the more we can expose it. I think you're not going to find anything like this. I think. From where I've worked around the world, this is really special, and the support. Everyone's out for everyone's best interests, and that's awesome.
I think that's actually one unique to Hawaii, but also much more so in the tech community here. And this is not talking bad about any of the other industries here, but I would say because a lot of the other industries are established, there's a little bit more kind of competition, right, between them. And here, because we're all just trying to grow this pie from where it is at now, it's this really interesting opportunity where everyone's like, how can I help? How can I help? Aaron, how about yourself?
Yeah, so my advice to executives is to invest in mentorship. It's like find mentors in your organization, people that can tell stories that will help the young folks grow. And I think that's really important. And I think that's the path for us to grow more talent here in Hawaii. The advice for folks that are looking for jobs, I meet a lot. I meet a lot of students, especially new grads. The auntie will ask me, "Hey, can you talk to my niece? She just graduated and she doesn't know who to talk to." There's so many kids like that are graduating schools that are in computer science or in technology, trying to break into companies like yours that just don't know how to get there, right? And so they meet me, and I'll introduce them. That's why I'm, excited that I met you now. So I think my advice to them is to find that person that they can talk to. So I mentor. Basically, that's what I am to these folks, to help guide them and navigate that path.
Zach?
I think for me, it's for leaders, for C-suite hire managers, it's being intentional about building your team, especially and we're talking about Hawaii, right? So be intentional about hiring in Hawaii. Great example is Aaron. Great example is Corey Goff, CTO of Reef AI, who is a huge champion who would even overrule candidates that were outside of Hawaii because he was dead set on making this hire here in Hawaii. So I think being proactive on the candidate side now, on the flip side, right, that's super important, but you also have to be intentional about the way that you're connecting with folks on LinkedIn, the meetups you're going to, the groups that you're involved in, right? And I think if you continue to help people in your network by advocating for them and finding new jobs, finding new opportunities, and being a connector, it'll come back around to you.
Now, we're going to open up for questions. The quicker you ask, and more direct and a better question you ask, the more time that you're going to give for other people's questions. So name, you can say what company, and then a question. That's my only ask.
Jim Salzman, TalkNicer.com. I'm going to assume that Kentic and Servco are both clients of AEP, because 45 minutes ago, I looked at all three websites, and AEP has almost 3 times as many openings posted on your jobs page as you two combined. So my question is for Zach. You answered part of my first question earlier. When you have a requisition that you can't fill, you reach out both to your island networks and to the mainland. But what does that look like in terms of job seekers? Do they need to subscribe to your LinkedIn page? Do you have a mailing list? Do they keep hitting reload on your jobs postings every day? And conversely, when you get a requisition that has a lot of applicants, are you ever tempted to lower the rate while keeping the same client rate?
So I'll tackle, I think there's 3 questions there, right? So the first one is, yes, Kentic is a client of ours. Servco, not yet. Okay, so the second part of your question is, how do you interact, right, with AEP Hawaii, or how do you get involved in our talent network? Yes, we have specific jobs that are active or proactive jobs. Maybe it's for an award for a defense contract, for example, that we're preparing for. If there's no specific job on our website or on our LinkedIn that's posted, we'd recommend you just join our talent network. So we have tens of thousands of Hawaii-rooted and Hawaii-based tech talent, executives, you name it. And we always advocate for higher salaries. That's the thing, we want to make sure that we're in that fight. And as a grappler, you better believe I will be.
Good. How do you join your talent network?
You can go to our website, aephawaii.com, and there's a talent network tab. You click on it, drop your info in. We'll be happy to help you. Thanks, Jim.
Any other questions? Final question.
How do you tap into the education system here for finding talent?
He's sitting right behind you.
So this is it. This is
Yes,
the only
Alan,
pipeline?
Yeah. He's definitely a great avenue is Alan, who we've been in a partnership with the Workforce Development Program he sponsors, and it's called Leap Starters, which is almost in its 2nd year. And I think it's going into high schools as well, right? All the way through to, not yet, okay, but yeah. And then our own internal recruiting, we have good relationships with UH, so we do the job fairs, and and not just UH. We go to all the colleges to make connections, and they've been great. Through other connections too, just through the tech community, we've been able to connect up with different schools, whether it's high school level or, and like you said, even more junior. I'd start with Alan, and then take it from there. Yeah.
So I volunteer a lot for the UH Computer Science Department. They do industry speech talks. So I went in to talk to the students. They bring people in to talk about all different sorts of things. So you talk to the students there. They also have students that want to do projects for companies such as ours in technology. So they actively ask for companies to volunteer, problems that their students can do for free. And so there's a lot of opportunities to work with the computer science department.
Okay. Yeah, final one.
This is coming from like a startup standpoint. It sounded like there's a lot of fresh graduate talent, and then paying top dollar or over market price from bringing people back from San Francisco or New York. Is that everywhere where the market is here? Do you have to be very flush with cash or go for fresh grads? How do you build a team here but not have to compete with overly funded Series C companies? Is this how do you do this as a startup? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm part of Blue Startups. I have a tech startup here. We're raising money soon, and we're trying. I live here. I'm based here, building a tech startup and looking at hiring. And I get various advice, and not a lot of people are advising me to hire here. I'd love to, and I'm trying to figure out how do we make it work. And cost is usually the first thing that's talked about. So.
Jason is the CEO of a company called UmiApp, which is a very fast-growing company, but dealing with this like a lot of other startups are.
Yeah, so we took the nurturing approach. So we looked for the lead positions, who we found them all outside of the data we brought in, but for devs, right? We found a lead dev who used to work at Tetris and was just great, and at that stage too, to pay it forward and build a team, but also is a really good hands-on developer and can lead that whole effort. And so we found that talent here, and then from there we started to then how do we use that more mid-level senior talent, or pretty senior talent I should say, to build that kind of green talent and cultivate them up, and so that's been successful for us, and so that like you're saying, that the senior talent is here if you want to start that way, and then everyone's overstaffed with that. But the approach we took was find someone who could teach everyone else.
Yeah, I have a story about something very similar. There's a company up there named Shifted Energy that I'm friends with, Olu Nagan, and I learned about his company. And he was talking to me about a problem that he was trying to solve, and I was listening, and I couldn't solve it. But then I heard some other engineer talking about his interest in electricity, and he was a machine learning student. And I was like, wait a minute, those two people should talk to each other. And that's how that happened. And so my advice isn't necessarily like, here's how you should approach hiring people, but if you could network, and here's what I am working on, I'm looking for other people that are passionate about it, then that's how that works. You can find people that will match you with interest. I think that's where you get started. If that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, I would agree. And actually, that person I mentioned was a referral from someone else, so connecting those dots, and that was only through a network, and that happened.
I think we do have to wrap here before Nam kills me. I think the point that you're getting at is that as a startup here, paying and hiring people here, top talent, you aren't going to be able to necessarily match until you get to the Series A, Series B. It's hard at the seats, and I think that that challenge and that problem set is similar to any other kind of more typical startups. Is that you're going to have to do equity in other creative ways. Zach, anything?
Yeah, real quick. So the playbook that Reef AI is using, seed hiring here in Hawaii, should definitely talk to Corey about it. But basically, when you're looking at an engineer here, you're not going to pay anything close to what you would in any major metropolitan area. The concentration of talent here is super tight, and maybe offsetting salary with equity. Right? Could be a good example. But when you're looking at maybe outsourcing it to India or Argentina or wherever you want to outsource it, when you look right here, I think the impact is a lot greater, right? I know the impact's a lot greater. So no pressure. But at the same time, talk to Corey. He has a good playbook. Yeah, exactly. But by the way, Jason's absolutely crushing at Umi. So
yeah,
plug right there.
So we're going to wrap. Thank you, Nam. Thank you, Mita, for giving us a few extra minutes today. Gentlemen, this was incredible. I just have to say, normally I have the best Aloha shirt in the room, but you guys are all looking nice. Thank you, everyone who came out today. Thank you for the great questions. This was a great panel. Let's give these guys a round of applause.